How valid is it to recommend or assess a game based on something abstract? Because when I break down my experience with Jedi Fallen Order mechanically, I find it to be unrefined, yet playable, and overall just an above average take on various genre conventions, bolstered by the well applied use of a licensed property. On these merits, I think there's no real point in dwelling on the game any further, but there is something. As I mentioned, it's abstract, it's the game's spirit. The idea that words kept coming back to me during the runtime is something that transcends the mechanics and measurable design elements into a feeling, one I'm still not quite sure where it comes from, until I thought about its context and what EA publishing a single player microtransaction free licensed game really means these days. Especially when you consider the publisher's reputation, Respawn has somehow managed to avoid the meat grinder so many other studios were chewed up and spat out by. It's a story of resilience, one that the game itself reflects in its own plot of Cal trying to function as a Jedi under the scrutiny of the Empire. This makes it, in a way, a game only Respawn could create. This meta-contextual layer, although probably unconscious, might just be the source of that spirit I referred to. Because of this, despite encountering many flaws and frustrations while playing, I was nothing but glad that the game existed. So there I was, inherently hooked by the abstract notion that this game was evoking a genuineness I so often don't see amongst its AAA peers, especially those from the same publisher. I think that says a lot, at least on my own personal level. I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, so I never chalked up the idea to the novelty one might feel whilst getting to exist in such an iconic universe. Yet again, there I was, ruminating on a feeling, one disconnected with the frustrations and observations of the flaws so actively working against the game. Perhaps to be more clear, for every time the combat felt broken, the platforming unreliable, or the pacing a little bit too dragged out, I was always on board to see where the characters would go, and was truly invested in seeing the shape the narrative took in defining them, as well as just to see how Respawn would handle all of the moments it gets to deliver in the game. I felt like I was witnessing the equivalent of a humble director coming off the back of their experimental indie film to contribute to a big franchise in their own way, yet the potential flaws that come with that were also present. As I write this, I think to Rogue One and how much I like that film's presentation of the war part of Star Wars, yet also how underdeveloped the characters are and the jarring midpoint diversion in the plot, and the fact that it's ultimately predictable. Jedi Fallen Order has such an equivalence in its mechanics being underdeveloped, yeah, it gets by on its enthusiasm to do something new, not only with where a Star Wars game can go, but for Respawn themselves. To watch a primarily first-person shooter developer switching up everything they're known for is exciting, not only but in addition to doing so under the known risks of attempting such a transition under EA, given we all know what their response to failure is. It took me a while to figure out where that sense of spirit I always felt came from. Now I think it's Respawn's genuine conviction in how they approach new territory for themselves, which is reflected within the game, which takes some strides in carving out its own route within Star Wars canon, yet it still has a foothold within the legacy of the series, embracing the function of Star Wars as a film, being a derivative collection of archetypes and aesthetic tropes seen in the genres that came before it. What this means for Fallen Order as a game is that it too collects many elements from the genres of which it's adjacent. No doubt you'll have heard it compared to Soulsborne games, a little of Uncharted and Metroid also. Yet it all makes sense. Never do you get the impression that Respawn did so for the sake of trying to create a collage that will appeal to as many people as possible, but instead to create a gameplay template that is congruent with the story. The design blueprint here makes sense. Playing as a Jedi would naturally evoke the systems Respawn chose to run with in Fallen Order. The duel-based one-on-one encounters, platforming, the use of the Force to solve puzzles and explore interconnected levels. It all functions in rounding out an experience tailored for this story and these characters. That's not to say Respawn doesn't insert their own flourishes via set pieces that take advantage of the potential within the world of Star Wars. They did, and they're the best part of the game, because they make you grin. Of course you want to scale an AT-AT like it's a Colossus from Team Ico's game, hijack it and wreak havoc. Respawn knows. It knows about all of the things it's doing, and you get a sense of it, a sense of spirit. Despite being on completely new ground here, Respawn have a bloody good crack at it, and being along for the ride, no matter how flawed, is something I felt was worthwhile. Especially in this time where we don't really see AAA games doing so anymore.
Grab some seat. I didn't try anything funny.
Welcome aboard.
They like you.